Sudhismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So we are continuing our discussion. So in the remaining part, there are some very important arguments. We already discussed the opposition of Kumarila Bhatta school of Mimamsa against Vedanta and how it was refuted. Now comes Prabhakara's strong arguments. Prabhakara is a well-known Mimamsaka, was a contemporary of Kumarila Bhatta. His well-known book is Brihati. It's a very, very important book. A little background is needed to explain Prabhakara's school. According to Bhatta school, the purpose of dharma is to produce adrishtam, that is punyam, and then swarga prapti. So, the very purpose of performing yajnas and yagas is swarga, that is swargagamo yajeda. Now, according to Prabhakara, this swarga and the results, enjoyment, all these things are secondary. He emphasizes duty itself. The obligatory part of vidhi is what he emphasizes. So he uses the word niyoga. Niyoga is central. It's a crucial principle in Prabhakara Mimamsa. It is sometimes equated dharma itself. So niyoga is the content and the purpose and the main motivation, the main incentive for performing kriya and yaga. Of course, adrishta is there, but it is only secondary. Swarga is also secondary. It's a very, kind of imperative force of the vidhivakyas. Means you do this. The emphasis is because Vedas make the statement, you should do this. So niyoga means obligation. It is niyoga that actually produces whatever results you get. And also he makes a lot of interesting arguments. For example, some of the vakyas, Vedanta vakyas like Adityo Brahmeti Vasida, Mana Brahmeti Vasida, see sometimes interprets this as a different kinds of upasana dhyanam, sampat dhyanam, adhyasa dhruva dhyanam, like that. It could be different kinds of dhyana upasana. So dharma is the command, niyoga, and the main the human agency for performing yajnas is vidhi itself. According to Bhatta school, dharma is a means for punya, kriya, punya, adrishtam, swarga, and so on. So desire for swarga prapti is the main motivation for duty. But Prabhakara, he said duty itself is the obligation for duty, because Vedas tell you this, do that. So Swargakamo Yajeda is more important for him. Swarga is secondary. For Bhatta, it is for Swarga, because when you read a statement in the Kalpa Sutra, any of the Sauda Sutras, Smarta, Samhidas, when you find a statement Yajeda, according to Prabhakara, it itself is enough. You do that. You should do that. But according to Kumarila Bhatta, Swargagamo Yajeda, when you read that Vidhivakya, and if you are a Swargagama, then you do this. That's why Bhashyam makes an important argument there earlier, Laukikani, Vaidikani karmani, all these karmas are flexible. Laukika karmas you can do, you may do, you may not do, you may do the opposite way, or you may do in a lopsided way. It's all happened. So there is always a flexibility, there is an uncertainty with regard to Laukika karmas and Vaidya karmas. But this is reduced in Prabhakara system, because Prabhakara says because there is a Vidhivakya, you should do that, whether you're Swargakama or not. It's an important point. Now I think we have to begin where we stopped yesterday. That is, Tathaja Sutihi Nakavai Sasarirasya. A Sasharira means a person who got Sharira Abhimana. So, Sasarirasya means Sasarirasya Sataha Priya Priyayoho Apagatihi Nasti. Now comes the beginning. So those who have got Sharira Abhimana, for them Priya Sukha and Apriya Dukkha, there is no end. It continues. Because actually, Sukha Dukkha, in other books there are different studies, and observations. When we can go beyond body identity, and when we can identify ourselves with the mind identity, then bodily problems appear to be lesser problems. And when you can even transcend mind and buddhi level, then psychological body problems appear to be lesser problems. So if you can identify with Atman, all problems are gone. That is called Ashariratum. Ashariratum actually means moksha, technically here means. So, example, you can say great musicians who have serious health problems, so scientists, the one who Stephen Hawking, I think, when somebody got very serious physical problems. Those who are blind, but they identified with some of the great scientific or aesthetic causes. So they became musicians, artists, and scientists. Because they went beyond the body identity. So they were engrossed in intellectual and mental activities. They could completely forget their bodily problems, deficiencies. And also, going beyond that, if you become a philosopher, then you won't worry much about problems of the body, because you can spend your time in the world of higher ideas. So, body is forgotten or body is transcended. So, mind is forgotten, transcended. So, you identify yourself with ideas, so you live in the world of ideas. So, even if you get beyond that, then what happens? You transcend body, mind, intellect, everything. So, this sa sharirasya sataha priya prayoho abhadirasti means, Vivalakshana, if you identify with body, sa sharira, or if you identify with mind or intellect, still there are always priya and apriya, sukha and dukkha. Apahatihi nasti. Iti yathavarnidam samsara rupam anuvadati. So already we described earlier this, this particular mantra is a pramana. It is a pramana vakyam. So pramana vakyam emphasizes or repeats what was stressed. It stresses what has been already stated earlier. That's the idea behind. What is that? Taratamyam, arthitvam, samarthyam, adhigaritvam and arthitvam. All these are different kinds of taratamya. Dharma taratamya, adhigari taratamya. So there is always this various levels of sashariratum and also ashariratvam at different levels. That's the idea behind. Iti yadhavarnidam samsara rupam anuvadati. Shariram bhava santam na priya priye. Here I am not able to. But Sprishataka, eh? Yes, this printing is gone. Sprishataka means it doesn't touch. So asharira means somebody who has reached the moksha level, gone beyond body identity, or santam, priya priye na sprishataka. The printing is very weak here, that's why. So that means it doesn't touch this priya, apriya, sukha, dukkha, at the bodily level, mental level, intellectual level, do not touch even those who have gone beyond shariratva. I mean, who have identified with ashariratvam. Ashariratvam actually means moksha, but by Uvalakshana I mean those who have gone beyond sharirabhimana in that sense. Many of these terms have to be taken as sadhya level and also at the siddha level. So at the siddha level, ashariratu means moksha. So mokshakyam, later comes ashariratu mokshakyam, Bhashyam himself says. But at other level it means those who have gone beyond sharirabhimana. That's the idea behind. So those who have gone beyond sharirabhimana, Sukha Dukkha do not touch them or affect them. Okay. Iti priya priyasparsana pradishedhat chodana lakshana dharmagaritvam mokshakhyasya asharirattasya visheshana visheshya. So asharirattasya mokshakhyasya. It is moksha. It is called moksha. Name is moksha. Mokshakhyasya asharirattasya Pradishidhyadi iti gammyadi. It's clear from different Srutis. That is, the Srutis already quoted earlier. Ashariram vavasantam na priya priyi sprishataka. So, iti priya priya sparsana pradishedhat. So, that priya priya sparsana pradishedha means that is negation or refutation of the idea that priya and apriya will touch a person. That is transcended for those who are identified with asharirattu, those who have gone beyond sharirattu, those who have beyond body identity. Such a statement is in the pramana, that is where the pramana itself. Pratishidhi iti gammyate. That iti gammyate, it's clear from Sruti. Sruti itself makes a statement. Dharma karyatehi priya priyaspasana pradishetu na upapaddhiti. Now, what about dharma karya means dharma karya, something that's produced by dharma, punya, for example, adrishta, or anything that is the product of karya of dharma. And dharma is nothing but punya or adrishta, is a result of karmas, kriyas, etc. Now, they all remain within the jurisdiction of priya and apriya. So, priya priyaspasana pradishedha is unthinkable. There is no upapatti for saying that priya priya do not touch, do not affect those who are living with body identity. So clearly, okay. So that's why dharmagariti means those who are identifying themselves with the punya by it's also papa is also included because they come together. That's why Bhashyagara, I think yesterday we discussed Athado Dharma Jijnasa should be read along with Athado Adharma Jijnasa. Adharma is important for us to know because that helps us to stick to dharma and to avoid adharma. So, like the dharmagarya, it could mean the result of punya and pava. Again, that means birth, life, death and rebirth, samsara continues. If punya increases, you may get deva sharira. And punya decreases, you may perhaps go to Naraka, hell, or you may go down you may descend further down beneath the human level. If punya and pava are equal, then you get Manusha Sharira. This is the normal principle here. So all these show the arthitvam, samarthyam, Adhikari Taradhamyam, etc. All these are always there at the level of material, empirical, or karmakanda level of experiences, enjoyment, sufferings. There's always Taradhamya is there, as idea behind. Yesterday we mentioned it for Kevala Karmi, Dakshinayana, Chandriloka, Surgaloka, etc. For those who are performing this Upasana Sahidam Karma, but they will go to Uttarayana, that is Archidadi Marga, that's idea behind. Mere Lavya Karmas, like along with Ishtapurtam, etc., along done with desire, they will certainly enjoy, but they will come back. But if they do with Upasana, it is still better. Nishkama Karma is still higher. Nishkama Karma, the same rituals, the same yajnas and yagas, when performed without any desire, then it may produce Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Prapti Karma Nishthayaha, Chitta Shuddhi Dwarena Purushārtha Vedatu, na Swatantrena. It will certainly lead to Jnana Prapti and Moksha, but indirectly, na Swatantrena. So that's the idea behind. There also this Taradhamya is there. Adhikari Taradhamyam, Dharma Taradhamyam, and also Adrishta Taradhamyam, Punya Papa Taradhamyam, and also Taradhamyam is more and less descending and ascending at the level of evolution, going to higher Devalokas. Punya, too much of Punya is there, remaining in status quo, being born again in this world. If your Punya and Papa are equal, and the Papas are more, you go further down. So that's the idea behind. So, and a Sharira here always means those who are done out of Atma Vichara, those who are living with body, but still those who do not have any Sharira Abhimana. That's the idea behind. So, as Sharirattvameva Dharma Karyam Idi Ched. So, argument will come. This moksha itself is Dharma Karya. Then what happens? Tasya na. The Siddhantin refutes that na. Tasya swabhavikatvad. Swabhavika means akritakam, not kritakam, not made by human effort. It is not the result of punya. So moksha is not the result of punya. Subtle point, without punya you cannot really reach moksha. Because punya alone can help you to increase samskaras, sattvika samskaras. That alone can help you to do niskama karma or karma yoga, and that alone can lead you to chitta shuddhi, and that alone can lead you to jnana prapti and moksha. But still, then how do you argue that there is no karya karana ananyatvam? There is no karya karana sambandha between karma yoga and moksha. The point is, if moksha were the result of any karma, then moksha will be anitya. So often taking the example, suppose you break a ghata, dhumsana, ghata. The disappearance of that ghata is a permanent experience. That ghata cannot come back to the same ghata. So avidya nivritti is a permanent experience, a permanent reality. That's why avidya is, it is anadi but santa. Anadi because really it has no existence. You cannot say when this sarpa came to this room. The answer is anadi because it never came there. So avidya is anadi but santa. The example is, if you break a pot, a ghata, the abhava of that ghata is something which is irreparable. You cannot bring that ghata back to itself. The same mirth may be used to make another ghata, but that ghata doesn't come into existence. Like that, once avidya is gone, then it is gone once for all. That experience, that reality of the destruction of avidya cannot be remedied, it can be undone. That's the idea behind. That's why there is no real connection between karma yoga, chitta shuddhi and jnana prapti. It comes very soon, that idea will come. So tasya swabhavikatvad, why it is Swarupa itself. Atman is Swarupa itself. This Brahma Swarupa. What is happening is only avidya nivritti. And then what is left out is Brahma Swarupa. So Brahma Swarupa is not the creation of avidya nivritti, or chitta shuddhi, or karma yoga, coming backward. It is itself there. So that's why Brahman, tasya Brahmanaha swabhavikatvad. It is not kritakam. It's swabhavika, its own nature, it's swarupa. So again this is pramana vakya. Ashariram sharireshu anavastheshu avasthidam mahantam vibhum atmanam matva dhiro na shochati. Dhiraha, dhiyam ratidi dhiraha, means viveki, is idea behind. Somebody has got viveka. Ashariram sharireshu anavastheshu avasthidam. So this Atman, the Jivan Mukta maybe, or Atman or Moksha Swarupa Brahman, is existing in Sharira. Now, this Sharira is Anavastheshu Avasthidam. It is Asthira, but there it exists as Sthira. Anavastheshu Avasthidam. It is within body, but it's not the body. Mahantam. Mahantam means desha kala vastu aparicheda, means paricheda shunyam. It is not limited. Desha kala vastu paricheda shunyam. That is Mahantam. Vibhum sarvavyapitvad vibhum. It is all pervading. Atmana means our own, the real I. So this real I, for in a Sharira, for in Jivan Mukta, is the same I which an ordinary person tells you I am going here. And that I is only a gross spuranam or vibration of the real I. The real I of a Jivan Mukta, who is a Sharira. So he matva dhiro na sochati. He always remains free from dukkha. Aprano hyamana shubhra, all it is under. So it is not prana, it is mana, etc. Shuddha tattvam, it is there. Asango hyayam purushaha, ityadi sudibhya. So every statement is supported by Shruti, but then there is a logic employed, and when dealing with Bauddhas, you don't find Bhashyakara relying upon Shruti Vakyas, but the logic itself is enough. Ateva anushtheya karma vilakshanam mokshakhyam asariratvam nityam idi siddham. So anushtheya karma vilakshanam. Anushtheya karma phalam is always anityam. Because it did not exist before the anusthana. It comes into existence because of anusthana. And if there is a difficulty, a problem with anusthana, then also his entity will be affected. That's why mokshakhyam asariratvam anusthana karma phala vilakshanam. That's a conclusion. Nityam idi siddham. Now tatra kinjit parinami nityam yasmin vikriyamane abhi tadeva idam idi buddhirna vihanyati yatha Prithivyaadija Jagannityatvadinam Yatha Sankhyanam Gunaha Idam tu Paramartham Buddhasiddhim. So it's a different Nityam, Nityam actually means Swabhavikam Chaitanyam. Sankhyas accept two types of Nityas. One is Kudastha Nityam, that is Parinami Nityam. Moksha, according to Bhashyakara, is Kudastha Nityam, it is Paramarthikam, is Paramartha Nityam. So, all these entities, Prithvi, all these Parinami Nityam, this Bhumi, Earth, all this Prapancha is Nitya. Because they sing, there are changes, Parinama is there, but still will stay still. You say, this is Earth, I am Prapancha. We are not different, the same tree. So this Earth is there, but we don't say new Earth has come. It is Parinama is there, changes are there. Every minute, every second, all the cells of the human body may undergo changes. But still we say, well, it is the same. So even for things which are subject to Parinama, changes, still we may use the word, oh, Nitya. We don't. It is not that kind of Nitya. Moksha is not that kind of Nitya. Moksha is Paramarthikam Nityam. So it says, Vyomavat Sarvavyapi. That is an example given by Nyaya Vaisheshikas. They say Akasha is Nityam for them. Sarva Kriya Rahitam, Sarva Vikriya Rahitam, Nitya Truptam, Niravayavam, Swayam Jyoti Subhavam, Yatra Dharma Dharmo Sagakariyana Kalatriyam Cha Na Upavarteda. Upavartede. Tatedas Asharirattam Mokshakhyam. So this is Paramarthika Satta. Anyatra Dharmat, Anyatra Adharmat, Anyatra Asmar Krida Krida, Anyatra Bhuda Cha Bhavya Cha, etc. All these are Idati Sudibhya. I mean, it is distinct and different from Dharma, Karya, Karana, Kalatraya, etc. I made it here. Now, Adastad Brahma Yasyayam Jignasa Prastuda. So, this context, that means what is this subject Vishaya of Jignasa? That is Brahman. Tad Brahma Yasyayam Jignasa Prastuda. That is, that Jignasa of the Brahman is being explained here, or being described here. Tad yadi kartavya seshatvena Ubadisyeda Tena cha kartavyatena sadhyaschet mokshaha abhivagamyate. Now the point is, the moksha itself, suppose moksha is the result of any anusthana, then the moksha itself will become anitya. So this Brahman is the Prakrita, is the Vishaya moksha. And if it is expounded as what called Anushthananga, means as an anga of some Anusthana. We will come to that later. There will be interesting examples given here from, of course, from Mimamsa, but Prabhakara school. They mentioned that. Tadyadi kartavya seshatvena, if it is the result, if it is a kartavya sesha, something that is left out after kartavya, I mean left out the karya of a kartavya, karya of a kriya, the result of a karma, result of yajnas and yagas, then tena cha kartavyena sadhyaschet, then mokshaha abhivagamyati, abhivagamyata, it would have happened like that, anitya eva syat, then moksha would have become anitya if it were the result of karma. Tatraivam sati yadokta karma phaleshu eva taratamya vastideshu anityeshu kaschit adishayo moksha iti prasajyeta. The problem is, suppose you expound, you say, you argue that moksha is a result of this the karmas, kartavyas, yagas, yajnas, etc., which I mentioned earlier, are subject to taratamya. In terms of adhikari, Taradamya, Dharma Taradamya, and there are many limiting factors depending upon the quality of yajnas and yaga, yajamana, ritviks, and purity of the dravyas used, which are all kriyangas, anushtanangas. The result of akrita, or adrishta, punya could vary depending upon the purity of pronunciation of Veda mantras, with which is ahuti is done, or the way the ritviks perform the yajnas and yagas, or the vrata, sankalpa of yajamana and sakadharmini, so they are on their behalf yajnas is done. So there will be a lot of taratamya, variation with regard to the result. Now that problem will also affect moksha. Tatraivam sati. Yadhokta karma phaleshu eva taratamya avastadeshu. Anityeshu. So all these kriyas, karma, they have the problem of taratamya, difference, variation. What happens is, kasit atishayo moksha iti. Among these moksha should be something superior, something higher, something more sublime. That could be the interpretation if you assume that this moksha is the result of karma. Moksha is the result of anusthana. Moksha is the result of purvamimamsa, karma, kanda, kriyas, yagas, yajnas, etc. Iti prasajyeta. Nityascha moksha sarvaihi mokshavaadibhihi abhivagamyati. Ataha na kartavya brahmopadesho yukta. Therefore, your argument, your assertion that brahmopadesha, Brahman is a kartavya. So kartavya actually means, punya, dushta, is a kartavya. What is left out? What is the result? What is the karyam of karmas, yajnas, yagas, etc. Here, apicha, Brahma Veda, Brahmaiva Bhavati. From now onwards, it is a Prabhagata Mata Nirasa. The Bhashyam comes. So Ratna Prabha and other books give elaborate examples and illustrations in this context. And as mentioned earlier, Prabhagara believes in the yoga. And the yoga will tell you that because the Vedas mention you have to do it. Sargagama, Sarga is there, but Adhishta may be there, but that is not the main purpose. Main purpose is you have to do the imperative. There is a Vedic imperative that you have to do this because Vedas have the injunction. So you have to do. That is the yoga. The divine injunction coming from Vedas. And this Vedanta Vakyas will create jnanam, not dharma jnanam, and that creates apurva, and that leads to moksha, the highest goal. So it is caused by niyoga. So moksha, according to Prabhagara, depends upon niyoga, kriya. And Advaita refused that, Shankaracharya refused that. Apicha, Brahma Veda, Brahmaiva Bhavati, Kshiyanti cha asya karmani tasmin dushte baravari, Anandam Brahmano Vidya, na vibhedi kutaschana, abhayam vai janaga praptosi, tat atmanameva abhed, agam brahmasmidi, tasmat tat sarvam abhavat, tatra ko moha kashoga egattum anuvashyataha. Itevam adhyaha sudayaha, Brahmavidya anantaram moksham darsayandyu, madhye karyantaram varayandi. So this is an important point, which I referred to earlier. So all these mantras, which are different quotations, all Upanishad mantras, you may be familiar with. No need to explain all this. Tatasmin dushte baravari, na vibhedi, janaga praptosi, then atmanam aham aved, brahmasmidi, tasmata sarvam abhavat. All these are important things. That means, tattva kasyoga egattum anupashyataha, etc. So now all these are important emphasis, emphatic points. Ityeva madhyaha sudeha, brahmavidyanandaram. After realizing Brahmavidya, moksham darsendyaha. All these. Moksha sadhana. Because moksha sadhana destroys Tula Vidya and Mula Vidya. That is the explanation. Both the fundamental, the original avidya, it will Maya, and Tula Vidya, which creates this aham sukhi, dukhi, individual, personal experience called to Tula Vidya. Mula Vidya is Karanam, Jagat Karanam, seed form of Maya. is responsible for the world appearance. So both Mula Vidya and Tula Vidya are destroyed through this moksha sadhana. That's why you see ekatvam anupashyatah tasarvam abhavat. All these mantras which indicate total freedom from janaka abhayam praptosi, etc. Tam tat atmanameva abhed brahmasmi. It is tasmat sarvam abhavat, all these experiences. So that Tula Vidya and Mula Vidya are completely destroyed. The argument is this: Ityam adhyaha sudeha brahma vidya anantaram moksham darshendiha madhye karyantaram varayanti. Means they refutes any possibility of the idea that you have to perform some anusthana after this. It is a direct refutation of the jnana karma samuchayavada. According to jnana karma samuchayavadins, Patra Pravanja Brahma Tattva and Mandana, as you find him in Brahma City, there's only book available, other books are not available. Brahmadatta's, Bhakta Pravancha's books are not available. Because we know the references. Kind of Bheda, combination of both. But they always insist that after Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti, you have to continue upasanas and rituals. That's their emphasis. So that is an important point here. So I was thinking today before coming, I got this book from Swamiji here, so Mandukya Bhashyam. So Mandukya Bhashyam gives a very pointed description of this. I think, it is Nanta Prakyam, Na Bhish Prakyam, Na Veda Prakyam, Na Prakyam, Na Prakyam, all this, Adhishtam, Vyavaharyam, Agrahyam, etc. Seventh mantra Mandukya Upanishad. The Bhashyagara says, Yadihi Trevasthatma Vilakshanam Turiyam Anyatat Vipradipatti Dwara Abhava Shastrobadesha Anarthakyam Sunyata Bhaktiva. So that is a previous argument. The point is here, Rijuriva Sarpadivir Vigalpimana Sthanatrayepi Atma Eka Eva Antaprakyatwadi Tvena Vigalpyate Yada Tad Antaprakyatwadi Pradisheda Vijnana Pramana Samakalameva Anartha Prapancha Nivurti Lakshana Bhalam Parisamapta. What is this, Anartha? So Anartha Prapancha Nivurti Lakshana Bhalam. So the Prapancha Nivurti means the cessation of the samsara. That is the Anartha. The samsara is Anartha. The Nivurti Bhalam, that Bhala means is completely gone, cessation. That happens the moment you understand the same Turiya, the same Atman, was perceived earlier as Vishwayata is a prajna, etc. So Turiya is not something, the fourth one, it's not fourth one. Turiya is present in Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti, all the three. Only earlier we perceived the Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna, etc. in association with Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti. Now we understand that the same Turiya was perceived as Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna. But when you remove its connection with a particular avasthatraya, Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti, then avasthatraya vilakshanam Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna, etc. Turiya itself. The same Sarpa is now perceived to be Riju. It is, it's like that, the same Antaprajna, Bhishprajna, Vedaprajna, all these are now perceived to be Turiya. Like that, so that's that Samakalameva means the same moment. You bring light to the room, you understand it's Riju, the split second Sarpa Bridi, Sarpa Brahma goes away. There is no other sadhana. That's why it says, before that it says, Parisamaptam iti turyadhigame pramanantaram sadhanantaram va namrugyam. So, turyadhigame, the moment you understand turiya, when you realize that the truth, then to understand turiya, when you understand turiya, then there is no other pramana needed, there is no other sadhana needed. That split second, when you bring light, when you perceive this Rajju, at that time Sarpa, Jaladhara, Danda, Bhuchidra, all these vehicle pass, go away. That's why, the Brahma Vidvariya and Brahma Varishta and all this. There is no gradation there. Gradation is only attempt to understand that strange phenomenon of Brahma Jnana. And that also is at Dvaita level. So of gradation, the Brahma Vid, Brahma Variya and Brahma Varishta, etc. question to ask yesterday. That gradation has absolutely no meaning, because when you bring light, the Sarpa is gone. Sarpa doesn't go by installments, 10%, 50%, no. When light is brought, on the spot, Sarpa Brahma goes away. Why? Because Sarpa did not exist. That's why it goes away, Sarpa Brahma goes away. And anything which actually doesn't exist at the Vyavaharya level, it takes only split second to disappear. At the Vyavaharya level, something to disappear may take time. More and more you have to do sadhana, sampatti, more and more sadhana, more and more spiritual quality, samskara, purity, all required. Depending upon that, only we understand the meaning of many of the spiritual practices. Even Shastra Padana also, the way we understand depends upon the level of our own qualities, our own gradation of our own achievement of sattva qualities. But Brahmajnana is just that, samakalameva, that's very important here. Iti turyadhigame pramanantaram sadhanantaram va namrugyam. That's an important point. That's why the antaprajnatwadi pratisheda vijnana pramana samakalameva. So all antapragyam, vishpragyam, all these vikalpas that constitute prapancha. So Vishyoita is a prajna, antapragyam, vishpragyam, etc. All these constitute prapancha, like sarpa. So in bring light, in turyadhigama, mean understanding turiya, what happens is, which constitute prapancha, samakalam, that's it, pramana samakalameva anartha prapancha nivrutti lakshana phalam. So this anartha prapancha means sarpa, etc. Vishuddha is a prajna, jagra sapna sushupti. That is the nivrutti, that disappear, cessation, freedom from it. Phalam parisamaptam. Iti turyadhigame pramanantaram sadhanantaram va namrugyam. This is a foundation of both Sabda Parokshvada and also the refutation of Jnana Karma Samuccayavada. Sadhanantaram pramanantaram namrugyam means you don't have to think, you have to go nishaniya, means jignasyam in that sense. You don't have to go in search of another means, sadhana, or another pramana. It means that at split second, it happens. Sabda Parokshvada. Rajju sarpa viveka samakale iva rajjuam sarpa nivrutti phale sati rajju adhigamasya. So when you understand rajju adhigama, rajju, what happens? Sarpa nivrutti phale. Sarpa means sarpa brahma nivrutti, means sarpa brahma goes away. Why rajju sarpa viveka samakala? I mean, you understand, you can discriminate between the sarpa brahma in your mind and a Jew that is in front of you that you are seeing. Sarpa Brahma is only the mind, the pradibhasika, conceptual reality. The Jew is here in front of you, Vyavaharya reality. That's why, when you understand pradibhasika, you transcend asat. When you understand Vyavaharika, the Jewish Vyavaharika here, you transcend Partibhasika. And when you understand Paramarthika, then you transcend Vyavaharika. It's a gradation. So that's a very important point. That's the answer. This is the foundation of Shabda Aparokshavada, and also it is the Jnana Karma Samuchya Nirasa. The same idea is mentioned here with a slightly different emphasis. That's all. That's why there's in the Madhya Karyantaram Varayanti. What means? Itteva Madhyaha Sudeha Brahmavidyanantaram Moksham Darsyantiha. So all these statements, they reveal moksha. Because Sarvam Abhavat Ekatvam Anipashyataha, all these reveal moksha. Once you realize this truth, then Madhya Karyantaram Varayanti. There is no need of any other, refute the possibility of any Karyantaram, any Pramanantaram or Sadhanantaram. Tatha Taddeva Tadedat Pasyan Rishir Vamadeva Pratibedi Agam Manurabam Juris etc. These are all Brihadarmika. Iti Brahma Darshana Sarvatma Bhavayor Madhya Kartavyantara Varanaya Udaharim. So the Udaharim is mentioned, the examples. Other Udaharnas, examples are given here. Other mantras, same thing, which already we discussed here. Another point, example is Yatha Tishtan Gayati iti Tishtati Gayatyor Madhya Tat Kartugam Karyantaram Nastidi Kamyadi. Suppose he is singing standing there. So standing and singing, there is no interval between the two. The person is in that statement. He may have stood there first, then started singing. That's a different matter. But you make the statement, is singing, standing there. Then what happens between the two? There's nothing that happens. Together. That's the idea behind. So, Yadha Tishtan Gayati iti Tishtati Gayatyur Madhya Tat Kartragam Karyantaram Nastidi Gamyadi Tum Hinapida Ayamasmagam Avidyayaha Paramparam Tarayasi Sudam Hiva Me Bhagavad Dishibhyas Tarati Shogamatma Viditi Soham Bhagavad Shojami Tam Ma Bhagavan Shogasya Param Tarayu Tasmai Mrida Kashayaya Tamasaparam Tasidi Bhagavan Sanat Kumara Ityevam Madhyaha Sudeha Moksha Pradibandha Nivritti Matrameva Atmajnanasya Phalam Tasidi. That's an important thing. All these examples you all studied, these Upanishad mantras, so Chandogya, Prashna, which I don't know how to explain. It's simple mantras. Literal translation on it right now. Main point is Moksha Pradibandha Nivritti Matrameva Atmajnanasya Phalam. That's an important research point. So Atmajnanam doesn't give you moksha. What does it do? Pradibandha Nivritti Matra. So Atmajnanam only removes obstacles that stand in our way of attaining moksha. If somebody tells that Atmajnana gives you moksha, then that moksha will become anitya because it becomes a karya. This is a karya means it's a karana. If it is karya, it originates at some point of time in the past. And if something originates as a result of an action, then it has to disappear at some point in future. That's why mokshasya agaryatva is a very important point in Vedanta. And also this idea. Light only removes darkness. Light doesn't bring light. That's the idea behind. So that's why Suteha Moksha Pradibandha Nivritti. Moksha Pradibandhi means Vidya, Maya, all this. Mostly because of Shariratma Buddhi. All these are all subjects that you already studied. Moksha Pradibandha Nivritti. But this is an important point. This Atmajnanam only removes Moksha Pradibandha. Moksha Pradibandha Nivritti Matram eva atmajnanasya phalam darsayati. That is a very revolutionary concept in Indian philosophy. That is, the truth is self-revealed. The truth doesn't stand waiting to be revealed. The truth is not something that we attain, we produce, we samskarya, vikarya, apya, and so on, utpadya, nothing of the kind. That is there in Mimamsa in a different level, a different context. So, moksha paribandha murti phalamatrame atmajnanasya phalam dasyati. Tata acharya pranidam nyaya upabramkhidam sutram dukkha janma pravritti dosha mithya jnananam uttarottara abaye dhanantara abayad apavarga. Apavarga means Swarga. I mean, it's a Nyaya Sutra. That is dukkham, jananam, pravritti, dosha, prama. All this one after another. Whatever is said later, when they disappear, the previous one also disappears. Then moksha comes. But remember, Nayayika's moksha is different from Advaitin moksha. That's why Sri tried to write this Khandana Khandakadya to refute Nayayika's understanding on the concept of liberation. It's a different context. Idi mithya jnana apayascha brahmatmayagatu vijnanat bhavati. So, that is, when you realize the Brahma jnanam, then only mithya jnana goes away. Atma means the I, the real I that I am, not body, mind complex, the real Aham Sfuranam. When you explore, when you pursue the path to find out who is the real I, Aham Sfuranam, then finally you realize it is the Brahman that's everything. That's why that Tasmat Sarvam Abhavat, that Aham Brahmasmi Mahavakya analysis there in Brihadaranyaka, first chapter, fourth Brahmana, that we don't have time to discuss now. Okay. So now next. So one important point, remember, maybe it's good to keep this in mind. Prabhakara here brings out certain types of dhyana methods, and he's trying to interpret some of the Veda mantras as different forms of dhyana or upasana. One is Sampat Dhyanam, that is mentioned, we'll come to that. That's why. Nacha idam brahmatmayagatu vijnanam sambad rupam yatha anantam vai mano ananta vishwe deva anantamevasa tena logam jayati. Idi nacha adhyasa rupam yatha mano brahmetti vasida adityo brahmetti vasida, etc. Idi cha mana adityadishu brahmadishti adhyasava. So adhyasa rupam and sambad rupam. So the Sambadhyanam, that deliberately when we superimpose one thing on another, that is Sambadhyanam. So what we are superimposing, that is Aropyam, is important here. This is Purvapakshi's view. Bhashyam will say no. For example, in Jiva you superimpose Brahma. Alpalambana tiraskarena utkrishta vastu abheda jnanam sampat. For example, there is an equation sometimes they give in there, Manovurti. So you can see different Manovurtis. There is a Bhashyakara course here. Anandam vai mano ananda vishwadeva anandamevasa tena logam jayati Brihadaranyaka. So Manovurteha, the Sambadhyanam is example. Manovurteha is Ananta. Manovurtis are indescribable, infinite in number. Okay. So, and again, Mana also should be Ananda, because Manovurtis are infinite number, infinite. So mind also should be infinite. So Manovurtaya and Vishwadeva, Both are Ananta. So Vishwadeva should be Mana. So what we do, you superimpose on Mana the Vishwadeva. And then what is Alpalambana, Tiraskarana. That is, you give up what is small and superimpose something big. Vishwadeva is Mana. That is it. In that case, mind will become purified. Another way is, you superimpose Brahman in Jiva. Then what happens is, Brahman is Amrita Swarupa. So through that meditation, you get Amritatva. Why? Because in Jiva, that is your own individual Jiva, Aham Brahmasmi. Sometimes they say Aham Brahmasmi Anubhava is something like that, they will tell you. Aham Brahmasmi Anubhava. Adhyasa is also not very different. So through this you get Amritatva, through Sampadhyanam. Because Brahman is superimposed. So Brahman is Amrita Swarupa, so you also become Amritattva. Adhyasa is something different. So in Sampadhyanam, Aropyam is important. What you postpone. In Adhyasa, Alambanam or Adhishtanam is important. You meditate focusing on Alambanam. It's called Pratyekopasana, Pratyekopasti it is called, Adhyasa. So, mind or Aditya is superimposed on Brahma. So, in Adhyasa, I'm Brahman. So, in that Brahma, you superimpose mind or Aditya. So Adityo Brahmityadesha, Jivo Brahmityubhasida, all these are different examples are given here. So now the point is, Bhashyakara rejects all this, Purvapaksh's view. Nacha idam Brahmatmaigatva Vijnanam Sambat Rupam. It is not some kind of a Sambat Dhyanam. Alpalambana Tiraskarena Utkrishta Vastu Abheda Jnanam. It's not like that. Again, I mentioned earlier, according to Advaitins, you don't have to superimpose Brahman in Jiva. Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. Jiva is Brahman itself. That is so obvious. So there is no need of any kind of superimposition of Brahman in Jiva, and then you think of the Amritas, the eternal character, the Amrita Suruvattum, Amritattum of Brahman, then you also become Amritattum is attainment of the dhyana practice, either Santadhyasa or Sambhadrupa. This is Prabhakara's view. So all these statements which are indicating different vidyas in Vedanta, they are interpreted by Prabhakara Brihadi as different kinds of dhyana, either Sambhadrupa dhyanam or Adhyasarupa dhyanam. Jivatma is small, Vishwadeva is big. So you superimpose upon it. Then what happens? You get expansion. That is Sambhadrupa. So that's the idea behind. And then Mana Adis Adhyashu Brahmadishta Adhyasaka Nabi Vishishta Kriya Yoga Nimittam Vayu Bhava Samvarga Prano Bhava Samvarga Samvarga Vidya. Same thing. Itivat Napi Ajya Avekshanadi Karmavat Karmanga Samskara Rupam. So Ajya Avekshanam, that's a practice in some kind of yajnas and yaga which are now become almost extinct. It's called Upamshu Yaga. In Upamshu Yaga, it is something very comical when you think of, what Prabhakara says, he says, there's a mantra, Patnyavekshidam Ajyam Bhavati. It's mentioned in Shadabada Brahmana, that's why called Upamshu Yaga. It's called Upamshu Yaga because mantras are to be uttered and Upamshu, others should not hear, not Vaikhari but Upamshu. Others should not hear. So Ajyam, one of the Dravyas, one of the Kriyanga Karmanga. Bhashyam and other dravyas which are to be used for yajna. So, the Yajamana Patni should look at the dravya, mentally uttering some mantras. Through that process, she purifies those yajna dravyas in Uvamshiyaga. She mentally utters this mantra, and through this she does samskarana of the ajya, other ghee and other items for different karmangas. So like that, Brahmajnanam will purify our Atman. This is Prabhakara's view. Slightly comic. So that's why so I mentioned here, Nabi Ajya Avekshanadi Karmavat is a karma, is a kriya. Yugam. So Yajamana Patni, Dharakni Sakitam Karma, all these yajnas and yagas are performed in the presence of Yajamana and Sakadharmini. It's part of the Vaidya samskaras. So during this Vamshiyaga, where mantras are to be uttered as Upamshu, not Vaikhari, should not be heard by others. So the Patni should look at this dravyas, ajya and other things, karmangas, and mentally utters the mantra, thus looking, the avekshana means looking itself. Napi ajya avekshanadi karma, looking at it and then meditating and chanting some mantra silently. But karmanga samskara rupam, it is a karmanga samskara, means it is done to purify, to refine those dravyas used for that particular Uvamshiyaga. So Prabhakara says, Brahmajnanam also is meant to purify our Atman, that Atma of Yajamana. That's the idea behind. So that is absolute gibberish. That is Shankaracharya's view. It's really strong language. Bit of a comedy here, Ajya Vekshanadi Karmanga Samskarupam. Sampadadi Rupehi Brahmatmayagatta Vijnane Abhyugamamane Tattwamasi Aham Brahmasmi Ayamatma Brahma Ityeva Madinam Vakyanam Brahmatmayagatta Vastu Padivatana Pada Padasamannayara Pipigeda. So the point the Bhashyakara says, now Aditya Brahmabhat Siddha and Tattwamasi Aham Brahmasmi, if you put all these as some kind of a upasana, as some kind of dhyana mentor, then what happens is the very idea or the implication of Veda mantras, Vedanta mantras will be affected. It is wrong. It's a refutation of this. So your time is there? Okay. So that's the idea behind. So if you put it in such a superficial manner, then what happens is it will affect the paraspara bantha. That means that mutual coordination of the vakyas will be affected. That's the idea behind. And also Vidyade Hridayagandhi Chittide Sarvasamsya, etc. So remember, Asambadadi Rupehi Brahmatmayagati Vijnane Abhi Upagamimani Tattwamasi Agam Brahmasmi Ayama Brahma Demadina Vakyanam Brahmatmayagati Vastu Prativatana Paraha Padasamannayaka Parasparabandha. Period. That means all these mantras Agam Brahmasmi Tattwamasi, etc. If they are interpreted as Sambadadi Rupe, as Sambad Rupam Dhyanam or Adhyasa Rupam Dhyanam, etc., then what happens is the Paraspara Bandha, Paraspara Sambandha, that is Padasamanneka Vidyeda. Vidyade Hridayagandhi Chittide Sarvasamsyaha Idi Chevamadini Avidya Nivritti Phala Sravanani Uvarudhiran. So all these great ideas which are mentioned here, When you realize the Brahma Jnanam, then Vidyate Hriday Grandhi, Chiddinte Sarva Samsyaha. When you get this Anubhuti, Jiva Brahma Anubhuti, all doubts, all no's, all entanglements, all bondages, they are dismantled, they are destroyed. All these are great ideas in the Vedanta Vakyas. Idicha evamadini avidya nivritti phalasravanani. Because all these mantras, they clearly make clear that avidya nivritti phala, avidya nivritti, the phalam of all these mantras, Vedanta Vakyas. Avidya nivritti phalam. If we interpret the Vedanta Vakyas like, Ajya Avekshana Karma, something like that, then like that, this just like Dravya gets purified by, the statement is there, it is called Patnyavekshidam Ajyam Bhavati, the mantra is there, Patnyavekshidam Ajyam Bhavati. So this should be stared at or maybe looked by Yajamana Patni, then it gets purified. Like that, Brahma Jnanam also purifies the Karta. Atma. Here, Atma means here, it purifies Atma. This means Paramatma means it purifies the Yajamana, purifies the Sadhaka, purifies the person who is trying to attain Brahma Jnana. That kind of interpretation. If that kind of interpretation is done, what happens? It will upset the harmony, the mutual interrelatedness, the mutual integration of Vedanta Vakyas. That's why Pada Samanyega Pidyeta. It gives an example, Vidyate Hriday Grandhi, Chiddinte Sarva Samsyaha, etc. All these statements indicate avidya nivritti phalam, the ultimate result, that all avidyas will be destroyed when we study, when we understand these Vedanta Vakyas. And something very important point is, for sadhana sadhushta sampanna, even reading of this Vidyate Hriday Grandhi Chiddinte Sarva Samsyaha, it becomes a fact, depending upon sadhana sadhushta sampatti. If a person is highly evolved, it becomes a reality. I can give you an example from everyday life. See somebody like Paul Brenton, in the beginning of 20th century, who was living in New York, perhaps a British journalist, in New York in the United States. He heard about Ramana Maharshi, maybe from an article, and he wanted to know more about him. Now when he went to India, when we met Ramana Maharshi, and when we met, like he met even Yam also, Mahendra Gupta, he met. You can find his story. Now a person who is so eager, what happens is, when a person becomes so much surcharged with that kind of urge for spiritual motivation, what happens is all other samskaras, all other vrittis are pushed back, and this spiritual inclination, what is called moksha, that is the desire for spiritual liberation, or desire to understand the great spiritual truth, at least as Paroksha Jnana, Siddhanta Jnana, by reading and understanding. When that comes, when that possesses a person, all other vritti samskaras are pushed background, and he becomes an adhikari. And then what happens to be complete transformation in the life of such a person. Why? At least some kind of a sadhana sadhushta sampatti. So it's a gross example. A traditional Pandit may not fully agree with this, but that's what really happens. People who are looking for some higher spiritual truth, and when they are so much motivated by the desire to know this great truth, what happens is that extreme identification and desire to know something about it, even theoretical knowledge, not Brahma Jnana, that itself will purify the person's vasanas, vrittis and samskaras, sankalpas and all that, antakarana. And then what happens is, that is precisely what happens when you attain sadhana, sadhushta sampatti. When you look at the list, the Ihamutra, Bharava, Viraga, Samadhi, Samati, Mumukshuttum, before the Ado, Nitya, Nityavastu, Veha, etc. With Sudamani and Sutra Bhasha also. When you look at the list, we think it is a list of things to be bought in the market. But actually, it's an internal process. And when it happens, they all come together. When this happens, and when you read Tattwamasi, Mahavakya, etc., Vidyade, Hridayagranthi, etc., literally happens. Now, this is the view of Vedantics, but then it won't be understood by Prabhagaras, those who follow Prabhagara's school. Then why does happen? How does happen? The point is, avidya nivritti itself is a nitya experience. Because as I mentioned earlier, avidya nivritti and jnana prapti are the same, looking from two different angles. Avidya nivritti is like I mentioned earlier, it is destruction of a pot. That pot cannot come back to itself. So that Ghadabhava is a permanent entity in this case. Like that, the cessation of all avidya is a permanent experience. And the other side of the other name for avidya nivritti is moksha. They are the same thing. That's why Bhashyakara says there is no sadhanantaram, there is no pramanantaram. There is not one split second difference. The experience level is the same thing. So, and Bhashyakara says that's a real implication of this Tattwamasi and other Vakyas. When a person understands, when he is given the Upadesha Tattwamasi, immediately he perceives that Tattwamasi Mahavakya as Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti, because it becomes Anubhuti, Sabda Parokshvada. All these ideas will be completely demolished, will be disturbed, and also the actually Pada Samannaya, the harmonious understanding of Vedanta Vakyas will be disturbed if you interpret all these statements as Sambad Dhyanam or Adhyasa Dhruva Dhyanam or Ajya Avekshana, Patnya Avekshana, all these. That's the idea behind. Okay? We can have interaction for a few minutes.
Okay. But any yajna, yaga presupposes artitvam and samarthyam.
Yeah.
But in Prabhakara Mate, niyogaha eva, you are saying, how he justifies without artitva?
He says, no, niyoga is from the Vidhivakya standpoint. How the person approaches, understands niyoga depends upon his own artitva, his own adhikaritva. Niyoga is the Yajeda is a clear indication. The duty is there. Swarga, Phalaprapti, Adhishtam are secondary. So how he understands depends upon his own adhikarita, radhamya and other, his own level of adhikaritva. But it is imperative that he should do that. This is important only in relation to Kumarila Bhatta's interpretation of the Mini Sutras, Slogavati and Antravati. Kumarila Bhatta says main incentive, motivation for yajna is Adhishtam, Apurvam and Surga. That Prabhagara pushed aside. It's junior contemporary of Kumarila Bhatta. And he said, no, do this, that because Vedas mentioned that, you have to do it. That is called Niyoga. Niyoga is central and crucial to Prabhagara's view. That's the main point of difference. Kumarila Bhatta says, you do this for Surga Prapti. That's what motivates you. That desire is what is motivating you to perform yajna and yagas.
So that is artitva.
Artitva. But Prabhagara says no desire, because there is a vidhi vakya, you have to do it. The emphasis is on the vidhi vakya itself. For Prabhagara, the emphasis on vidhi vakya is important, but it's based on his own, that is Surga Kama. Swargagamatva is secondary for Prabhakara. It is primary for Bhattas.
Then how it is different from work for work's sake?
No, you can say that. Immanuel Kant also, in a critical practical reason, he wrote a book after critical pure reason. That kind of duty for duty's sake is not entirely new, not exclusive to Vedanta. Its highest principle you find in Gita, Karma Yoga aspect. It even says Gita in the Bhagavad Gita, in Lord Krishna, he doesn't begin with Karma Yoga. He actually, the first instruction is Sakama Karma. Bhayad Ranat Uvardam Mam Sindetva Makharada Yeshabna Jimbhudu Bhutva Yasasi Lakhavam. You be small in the eyes of your enemies and of your friends. Sakitim Chabi Budani Katayin Shinidhi Avayam Sambhayuda Sakiti Maranada Dirichadi. There is no Karma Yoga spirituality here. Chitta Shuddhi, nothing. Tamoguna, inertia, laziness, sleepishness. That's the worst thing. It's better to do work with ambition, with some desire. That's the first instruction given to Arjuna. Then only Karma Yoga comes. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ube sukrudushkude tasma yoga yujisa yoga karma sugosharam. Yogastha guri karmani samganti to adhanajya. Says vidusama bhuta samatha yoga. That comes later, second chapter itself. So, the point is, duty for duty's sake is a great idea, but its origin is Gita itself. But that's not an entirely new concept, duty for duty's sake. Even many modern thinkers in Western countries also emphasize that point. But here, if you translate vidhi as duty, there is a little problem there, because for Kumar Lavat and also Prabhakara, it is Vidhivakya mentioned in Jaimini Sutras, not any other duty. For Prabhakara and Kumar Lavat, duty is not in the universal sense in which Gita uses duty, much more universal. Lord Krishna used word karma in a very universal sense. Naki kashikshanamavi jadudishtati akarma krita. Karideki avasya karma sarva pragadiyai kunehi. Such a simple human instinct is to be active. Vairalabhatta and Prabhakara take work in this very narrow, rigid sense. Vedas mention certain things, you do this. So it is all within that small little framework of Mimamsa philosophy. It doesn't go beyond that. That's why it is very easy for Shankaracharya to refute Mimamsakas. Much more difficult to refute Sankhyas. Mimamsakas, what they say, can be explicitly untenable. But so the Mimamsa's concept of work cannot be equated with duty for duty's sake. Prabhakara only Veda Vihita Karma, or Pratishita Karma avoiding one and accepting one. Vihita Karma should be done, Pratishita Karma should be avoided, that's all. In that sense, don't worry about Surga Prapti, Adhishtam, Apurvam, but do this because Vedas, this Veda Vihita Karma, so you have to do it. The Vedas Sutta Pramani, that's the idea behind it. Apaurushiya. Okay. So I think we'll stop now, we'll continue maybe afternoon. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.